5, 4, 3, 2.
It's Sunday night. I'm Jeff Colson, and it's time to talk about hockey. I'm so glad you're here. I'm so glad we're getting rolling, getting back into a rhythm like we had last year before the holidays, before a lot of things, but basically we're back at it. So I'm so glad you're here tonight. If you're new to the program, once again, I'm Jeff Colson. I'm not a family advisor. I do this for a living. I work for a team in one of the top junior leagues. I'm a player development director. And what I do here is I take all the analytics, I take all my experience, 30 years of this. I've been a GM, I've been an owner of multiple junior teams. I've been a coach for years. I'm a level certified. But I put that together with just common sense. Also a parent. I had children that played the game all the way up through into college at the national championship level. So I just try to take it all and combine it. I use a lot of information from a lot of other people too. Part of the people that watch this understand the value of analytics. They understand the value of adding that with some experience to roll through what we do here. Tonight is going to be awesome. We are going to discuss a lot of things, but we got to get our logo up there. I can't believe that I did not put the Junior Hockey Advisor logo up there. It's just going to be a good night. We've got a lot to discuss, and I'm not sure how much we'll get through, but it evolves. We keep adding things on and we keep growing. I gave you some bad information last week. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Statistically, I can do better, and I'm going to clean that up a little bit later in the show as we get going. But tonight we're going to be talking about that climb. How hard is it to actually move up in the ranks? How hard is it to move up to the next level? How hard is it to get to junior hockey, the elite junior hockey? We're talking BCHL, USHL, North American Hockey League. We're talking about the top dogs. What does it take, and who gets in those leagues? So, I'm gonna do something that I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it. It's probably I got to be careful here. None of this is like top secret information, but it's not shared with the public. But I'm going to give you generalities right now. Generalities. I'm going to share with you a little bit about the North American Hockey League first. We're going to talk a little bit about how we stand right now in the whole tender process. Now, remember the tender process. Each team is allotted their amount of tenders. They pick their tenders first, then they turn around, and after the tenders, that doesn't look good, does it? I got to clean that up. There we go. The NAL has tenders. Once the tenders are done, then they go into their draft. Once draft's done, they have free agents also. They go to the main camp. Tenders, drafts, free agents, and veteran players all attend main camp. At that point, all bets are off. Usually you're going to see veterans and tenders and high draft picks make it to the next round, which is a roster of, I think, 35 this year. Could be wrong in that number. It's going to be in the mid-30s. But they move on to the fall. So you go from up to 10 teams of players, could be a couple hundred players. You work down to 35, and that's your beginning of your fall roster when you go into your actual training camp. So I'm just going to give you some hot off the presses, some numbers. There is, remember, there are tenders. Let's just say an average of 10 a team. I'm just going to use that number. The number fluctuates. It changes. It's not set in stone. Teams can do things like trade tenders. They can use them to compensate in a trade. They can earn other tenders for things that they do in the league as far as development of the league. So just use that average number of about 10. Right now, as we stand today, 49 of the players tendered, and that we're not talking about the mandated tenders, which are NA3HL and NAPHL. That's a different show. We've already covered that, but we can cover it again later if you need that. Right now, 49 players come from U18 hockey. 28 players come from prep. 19 players come from Minnesota with an asterisk next to that. I'm going to put an asterisk next to that 19, and I'll explain why in a second. 3 are European right now. That's the way we stand as it is today. Now, I want to share a screen with you, because I want you to kind of look at something, and I'm going to pull up. Let's see if I can do this. I think I can. I'm going to pull up on a screen share. As you probably know, this is not what I want because I've got like 18 little screens popping up all over the place with eCam on them. Let's see if I can get rid of that, and let's see if I can get the screen I want. If I can't, this did this to me last week. Okay, so I can't share it to you that way. I'll try one more way to share the screens with you. And if I can't share the screen this way, then we'll just have to move on. But I think I can share the screen this way. What happens is I've got multiple monitors running, and I have to find a different way. No, it's not going to let me. So, okay, I'll just read it to you. If we go to Elite Prospects, you know I use that a lot for data. RankNet is the backdoor information system. For anybody else, it is Elite Prospects, used by everybody in the business. Now, if you scroll U18, just pull up the U18 Tier 1 and look at the Tier 1 level of U18. Of the kids that are picked right now, broke it down for you, and picks in the top 30. This is the teams. The first team in the rankings, the second, the third, the fifth, the sixth, the seventh, the 11th, 12th, 14th, 15th, 17th, 21, 23, 25, 27, 28, 29, 30, and 31. We'll just stop right there. All of the teams that I just mentioned, there's only 5 teams in the top 30 that don't have players tendered from them right now. Okay, and that's, once again, not including the players that are the mandated tenders. Now, if you don't understand what the mandated tenders are, go back a show or two. We'll get into detail on that, or I'll cover it in future dates. The reason I wanted to bring this up is because I say it all the time. You know, it's tough to play at the higher levels. If you're on the 50th place team, maybe 1 or 2 players will may make it from that level, 50 to 60. But you know what? If the majority of the players are coming from those top areas, that's going to consistently stay that way. Okay. Once again, there's bias that comes along with this. I've talked about this many a times. Oh, and by the way, I wanted to get back to where I said there's an asterisk by the Minnesota high schools. If you look at that Tier 1 Elite rankings on My Hockey Rankings, and you see the Minnesota programs, they've got Minnesota Elite. Those are all their short-term preseason teams that run for a couple months at the beginning of the year, August, September, October, and that range. And they get 10 or 15 games in there. I didn't pull those kids out to see how many of those kids are on the Minnesota high school tender list. I'm sure that's going to put the number, almost consistent for the top 30 programs. There'll be, players on every level because those teams are pretty stacked with good players, those Minnesota Elite teams. So you take away those few Minnesota Elites. Bishop Kearney runs the same way. No numbers and tenders on Bishop Kearney because even though that player, there may be a player, and I'm sure there's 1 or 2 that have already tendered. I didn't check this for a fact. They would show up under their prep school, just like the Minnesota Elite kids would show up. So they won't be in the U18 rankings. They'll show up for their prep school or the high school. So it'll skew these rankings just a little bit. But the reason I brought this up is we're talking about how hard it is to get to the next level. Ascending to a top team, regardless of what you think about how good your coach is, how good your program is, stats don't lie. It's extremely hard if you're not playing for top 30, top 40 program in the nation. And some of these programs that have some astronomical numbers, they've already got 3, 4, 5 tenders coming off of them. They're not necessarily the best team this year. They're not necessarily on the top of the group. They're in the middle or the bottom of the top 30. And why is that? Well, it could be a few reasons. Could be they've got 4 or 5 really good players and the rest of the team isn't so good. Or it could be that there's consistency with the coaching to the point where teams in the USHL and the BCHL and the NAL trust them. Does that make sense? So it's extremely important to understand it's not only where you play. Now, I broke that down a little bit further. I even looked, sorry about that. I got to go back to my sheet here. I even broke it down a little bit more. Tier 1 Elite, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. There's 21 U18 teams that have players that are tendered already. Okay, of those teams, Tier 1 Elite League, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So 11, about a third of their league. Now, the HPHL has a couple teams with players. There'll probably be more, but as it stands right now, there's 2 of the 6 teams there. There's a couple teams out of remember, the Northeast Pack is also, I think they can be in the Beast and they can be in the AYHL. They can be all over the place. So it's a little bit harder to pick those teams out, but the rest are kind of scattered. What was the prevalent group there? The prevalent group is the Tier 1 Elite. I've been saying it for years, folks. It's the league that most people draft out of. Now, HPHL usually has great numbers, and there's a few teams in AY, and there's a few teams in the NAPHL, and there's a few teams who are the Beast that pop up to the top. Those areas also, though, have teams that are hybrids. They'll fall into both U18, and they'll fall into prep categories. You get into those North Star Christian Academy, you get into the Mount St. Charles programs, you get into the Shattuck St. Mary's, Culver, you get into all those programs. They're wearing 2 hats, so it's a little bit harder for me to track those. But the bottom line is, you have to be playing on one of your better programs if you plan on playing at the higher level. How does that make sense? Let's say hi to some people, and we'll get going on with the discussion here. We got a lot of people on already. Holy smokes, one of our better nights. I thought last night was really good. So we've got Hungry on. Wow, Hungry. Give me a name and a little bit about yourself. Are you a coach? Are you a player? Or are you just somebody that's hungry? Dana's on from New Hampshire. Jacob's on from Winston-Salem. Good to see you back in the mix, Jacob. Rob's on from Chicago. Andy in Knoxville. I think that's Andy's a couple nights for Andy in a row. Brandon's on from Seattle. We've got Paul. Hey, Paul, how you doing? Good to see you. Mary Jo's on from Des Moines. We've got Hamburg is on, and I think that's Western New York. I think William Paul's coming in from Western New York. Steven's on from Scottsdale and been one of our most loyal participants in our program since we started this. Good to see you back on. Vince is on from Michigan. Kyle's on from Nebraska. Perry's on from Nassau. Good to see you back, Perry. Chris is on in Ontario. JJ's on in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Close to God's country, but not quite far enough north to get up just north of Traverse City, where you see the real God's country. Let's see who else we got here. We got James from Odessa. James, good to see. One of the best billet families you could possibly have, although he's not a very good bettor. We bet a couple games. We bet his beverage on a couple games in the last couple weeks, and I have to tell you, I'm doing pretty good on my numbers. I should do it for a living. We've got Fort Wayne on with Christopher. Anna's on from Cape Cod, and that's where we're going to say time out for a while. I can't go through the whole list. We got a lot of people on, but I thought I'd say hi to a few. Okay, one more. Jeannie from Massachusetts. Good to see you too. All right, now I want to break into a little discussion about ages, because I think it's important you understand the age difference. We've talked about this before, and I don't think the concept is fully appreciated, the age difference in the leagues. The North American Hockey League is your oldest league. Okay, just to give you an example, 05s in the North American Hockey League, the number's at 5. 05s, the number's at 3, of which one player left after a couple games went to the USHL, and the other player has got 2 games in. Okay, so we're not talking about a league for 05s. 04s inside of the North American Hockey League. Remember, there's 29 teams in the league right now, so quick math on 29, 10, 10, and 10. Let's say you got 750 to 900 kids at any time participating in the league. You've got 88 kids that were 04s. Now, that sounds good, but remember, those 04 numbers are really jacked up because you got kids coming in with to get a game or 2 in, really testing the waters for next year. Both they're testing the waters and the team's testing the waters with them to see how they fit. So it's not really fair to say that this is even an 04 league because there's very few. 40 or less 04s are actually playing in the league. Okay, put that pen to paper, 1 point something players per team are 04s. So it's not an 04 league. 03s, 02s, and 01s make up the lion's share of this league. a couple hundred, close to 300 O3s, over 360 O2s, and 300 O1s. So really, O2s are the powerhouse of the. If we did this in a bell curve, they'd be the middle stanchion holding everything up. Let's compare that to first the USHL. So O5s in the USHL, once again, 15 teams, so a couple hundred, probably 300 players, roughly, give or take on the numbers there. And if I'm off on the numbers, give me a little bit of some leeway on that. But 15 teams, and if you're figuring they're 23, so 230 plus half of 230, yeah. So we're talking 350. Let's use that number. O5s, 58. O6s, or excuse me, O4s, 126. O3s, 180. O2s, 108. O1s, 67. Remember, it's capped on the top and the bottom of that league. They're mandated to have young players, and they're restricted on how many old players they can have. The NAL doesn't have that restriction. That's why you'll see a lot of 20, 21-year-olds in that league right now. So that's where the USHL is. Now, there's the BCHL, and this is where it really gets interesting because O5 is 41, O4 is 95, O3 is 160. Now, 155 and 116 on O2s and O1s, but there is roughly the same amount of players in the BCHL with 18 teams playing at each of these levels. Now, keep in mind, they do the same thing. The BCHL will bring players up that are young. The USHL will bring a player up that is young too, but nowhere near the amount that you'll see in the North American Hockey League. That they lead, no pun intended, but they lead the league in the amount of younger players they bring up during the course of the season. Now, I really shouldn't say that because the BCHL does run a lot of 15-year-olds, through during the season. They'll get a lot of their affiliate 15-year-olds. Now, the BCHL's got a different situation because the WHL and the WHL that's the Western League, that's major hockey, major junior hockey, that's considered pro in the U.S. They share the same market with the WHL. So there's a lot of players that are coming up that get drafted to the WHL, and the BC starts with juniors a lot younger than a lot of other leagues, and that's part of their success is they've competed to grab the NCAA kid from the WHL, even at a younger age. So the league became a younger league than the rest of the CJHL, much because of the fact that they're competing with the WHL for that NCAA kid before the kid decides to, quote unquote, turn pro at 15. So I hope that helps a little bit. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Here's where it really gets interesting because, everybody says, if I don't make the USHL, I'll just go to the NAL. Okay. If I don't make the NAL, I'll just go to the BCHL. Okay. Wow. I wish they were that easy. Okay. First of all, I gave you some stats at the beginning as far as where tenders and drafts come from, and that's literal numbers right now on tenders. I'm not going to give you teams. I'm not going to give you names. I'm not going to tell you which teams in the NAL are doing what, but I gave you a sense of where they're pulling from. I will give you a little bit of more on the prep side. Of course, it's Shattuck. Of course, it's Salisbury. Who else we've got on that list? Gunnery, Westminster, Culver, Gilmore. These are St. Thomas, Ridley, the South Kent, Mount St. Charles, Bishop Kearney, Kent. You should expect all those names. Those are the names that they're hockey schools. Those are hockey prep schools. You should expect to see those names, and that's the ones you see. But you notice though of those names that we just mentioned, some of those teams aren't on the top of their game this year, and they haven't been for a year or two. But their coach is still extremely respected. And once again, that experience bias comes along with it at times. So when I keep saying you got to be in the right league and you got to be playing for one of the top teams, in most cases, that's absolutely true. Until you come into a coach that's been there for 15, 20, 25 years, and he knows every single D1 coach, he knows every junior coach, and he can literally pick up the phone. If you got that relationship, throw everything else out the window that I say. Nothing I say matters when you run into a coach like that. And there's plenty of coaches out there in both prep, U18, and Minnesota high school hockey that have those relationships. I shouldn't say there's plenty. There's probably a couple dozen in all three categories, U18, Minnesota high school, and prep, that have that reputation. And that's why you see some of these programs, popping some kids in, and the kids might not have the best numbers compared to the rest of the league. They're good players, but they're just not coming from the top programs. Remember, there's always a bias towards winning. There's always a bias towards the number one. You walk into a building, one plays two, and it's a big showcase, 5 rinks, 8 rinks, whatever there is. One's playing 2, all the scouts are over there. 14's playing 15. You can hear the crickets and there's moms, grandmas, and girlfriends in the stands, and that's it. Okay, that's the way it works. It's the nature of the beast. You really can't do much about it. I really need to get a sip of coffee here. Okay, so the part I wanted to talk about a little bit is I did a lot of research on the BC, and once again, I got kind of cracked back by a couple people on our page this week because of the fact that I've got statistics and I've got all this data, and I eat this and sleep this. Well, it's because I work in the world of recruiting players. Okay, we have a bunch of scouts that work for us. We're managing all these areas. I should be into the numbers like this. I should know where the talent's at. I should know what leagues they're coming from. Now, there are guys that are better at this. There's always somebody tougher. There's always somebody bigger. There's always somebody stronger. There's always a better hockey player. There's always a better director of player development. There's always a better coach. No matter what you're doing in the world, you might hold that title for a little bit, but there's always going to be somebody coming on. There's somebody better than Tiger now. Tiger had his run. I'm not saying I'm old and I'm at the end of my run. I'm just saying I know there's people out there that are very good at this, and I know they take different approaches on it. And they go off the experience they've had and their ability to look at a kid and understand. And I do the same thing. I got to have the ability to meet the kid, see the kid, watch him play, but I also know where to go. That's why it's so important to understand you're not going to get to the next level until you understand that it's not a matter of, they'll come find you. Nobody's out there looking for you. I don't know how people get this attitude of, they'll just come find you, because nobody's looking for you. I'm going to get that null off of there because we're not just talking about the null now. So if you're playing for tier 2 teams, or if you're playing for a really, really down in the rankings, 100th place team, it's impossible virtually to get moved up. That's why you have to use the spring showcases. You have to use you have to have, at that point, if you're really serious about it, you either got to sacrifice, get up to a team that's higher in the ranking. You have to work extra hard to get views, going to showcases, going to pre-drafts, doing all the things that you've heard about and heard us talk about. But nobody's looking at the lower levels. There's just nobody there. You may get a phone call. It might be one of those coaches that knows somebody, but are you going to rely on that? Or are you going to rely on putting yourself in the best place you can possibly be to move up and move up in the rankings? So I say that because I believe that the way to do this is to find every edge you can possibly find. So let's get back into what we're talking about tonight. How hard is it to play in these leagues? Let's look at Americans playing in the BCHL. I'm going to throw you some facts, and I'm going to throw you some numbers. All right. There's 91 players that are Americans in the league this year. Now that number has changed. A lot of this is pandemic related. We know the numbers are a little off, but there's still 91 Americans playing in the league of 18 teams. Okay. First of all, there's only 4 teams that have their maxed 6 American players. The rest of them are running 1, 2, 3 players. I think they're averaging 3 players a team on each one of these BCHL teams. Now, remember, you got Wenatchee. There's only 1 American team in the BCHL, the British Columbia League. It's out in British Columbia. It is a great league. It's a phenomenal league. 91 Americans. Of that, I got 2 numbers for you. One's a percentage. One is a percentage, 86%. I want you to remember 86%. And then over here, 86% is over here. And over here, I want you to hold that number 6. 86, 6. Now, 6 is a number of players. 86 is a percentage. 86% of those 91, 86% have either a D1 commitment already, they played at a prestigious prep school, or they have USHL or NAL experience. Boom. Well, Jeff, how many don't have that? 6. 6 players. Now, you add Wenatchee into the mix, and that number goes up to 13 because Wenatchee recruits mostly West Coast Americans, and the numbers are skewed. Oh, boy. So there's 13 kids that don't have a commitment, USHL, NAHL, or a prestigious, highly competitive prep school on their resume. And some of the kids have all 4 of those ticked off, 86% of the 91. Think about that for a second. I want you to think about that and then think, okay, am I in the right place to move to the BCHL? Can I play in that league? Now, it's not a matter if you have the talent, because a lot of it's where you're at and where you're playing. It has nothing to do with talent. Now, once again, because of Wenatchee, if you're coming from the West Coast, your odds are probably better, playing Tier 1 Elite and making it known that you're interested, because that program does recruit the Arizonas. I think 18 players out of the 25 Americans on that team come from California, Washington, because they're in Washington, and Arizona, and I think even a little bit from North Dakota. So you're really coming from 4 or 5 states for the majority of that team, the vast majority of that team. Still getting great players. They've got some really, really good players. I think they got 5 or 6 commits on the team. They might have more commits than most, except on the other side of it is they got a lot of players that aren't in that category of USHL, North American Hockey League experience, or coming from a highly competitive prep program. That's where the majority of those players are coming from. So if you think you're playing U18, you go, oh, I didn't make the USHL. Go into the BCHL. Let's pack the car. I'll just go out. Let's just drive out, Dad. In fact, Dad, don't worry. I got it. I'm going to make the team. No problem. I know I'm only 18, but I got this. Don't pack your bags and don't head that direction. So anyway, let's see what kind of questions you got coming. I want to keep going on this topic, but I want to see what's coming in here. All right, it says, what's the point? Our kid is on one of the top programs in the area, and we're barely able to pay for that. I get it. This is not a discussion about paying for it or what the cost is. I get it. Hockey's expensive. That's a whole nother discussion. I don't know if I can solve that problem, nor am I in a position to solve that problem. I'm just giving you facts. Okay, I'm just laying out the facts. If you're playing on one of the top teams in the area, and then you got to work extra hard on some of the things that may not cost as much. Getting the word out, putting good videos out on YouTube, sending those to coaches, making sure you get to some of the pre-draft camps, making sure because a pre-draft camp's $200 versus, jumping and moving to a prep school where it's $50,000. I mean, there's things you can do, but really that's a tough one for me, because I'm not in the business of trying to find financial aid on things. I'm just giving you numbers on how they play out. And I appreciate that comment. That's a good comment. Let's see what else is out there. Oh, so what can somebody do? Quit hockey? I'm not sure your point is. Okay, I'm sure that's coming from the same person again. No, my point's not to quit hockey. My point is this is strictly to point out elite is very, very difficult to get to. We didn't talk about the other opportunities. There are tons of opportunities in other junior programs that are local. Tier 3 junior hockey is everywhere. The CJHL is a very economic way to go for a lot of players. The Eastern Hockey League is great. There's great junior hockey out there. But when you're talking about playing on these elite teams, the top of the top, the USHL, the BCHL, and all, it's just not for everybody, maybe for financial reasons, although they're all free to play for, except for billeting fees and some other surcharges for the BCHL now. But the bottom line is that's not the point I'm trying to make here. I'm trying to point out, and we'll go through the resolve of where to go in that situation. That's just not on this show. This is about talking about how tough it is to get to that top. If you're trying to climb the mountain and you're trying to get to D1 hockey, these leagues take from a certain segment of players and move on. So if you're not in there, that's where sacrifice comes in. I've talked about this before. Once again, I don't agree or disagree with how things work, but the facts are facts. One of the best players to ever come out of the Rochester area is a kid named Callahan, Ryan Callahan. He played in New York, played in Tampa Bay, phenomenal person, highly regarded player. His dad, this is public knowledge, his dad mortgaged the house to continue his hockey and to push him on. And at the time he mortgaged his house, Ryan Callahan was nowhere near. I think he was still playing high school. He's still a really good player, but it wasn't the point where everybody was going, that kid's going to be in the NHL. Okay, so there were sacrifices made, and everybody's got their limits on what they can do and what they can't do and what their amount of sacrifices are, but that's a separate discussion. Really, this is not a matter of trying to tell you to give up. No, I'm not a dream killer at all. I'm just trying to say, if you want to get there, you need to be here. And if you're not there, you either have to get there or it's not going to happen for you there. Then it's time to start looking at other avenues. Remember, there's 500, 600 ACHA teams. And if you don't know anything about ACHA hockey, some of the best college hockey outside of the NCAA's ACHA hockey, and it's phenomenal. They have their own rinks, they have their own locker rooms, they have Division I, Division II, Division III. There's lots of options. So I hope by no means am I telling anybody to quit or to give up. I'm just saying it's a mountain. It's not easy. Not everybody can get there, and there's a reason why. It's tough, and you have to be elite, and you have to be able to make sacrifices across the board. All right, so I hope I'm not ranting there. Sorry. All right, let's see what else we got here. As a person who worked with CHL athletes for many years, I absolutely love your content. Well, thanks. I thought it was a question. Sorry. Thank you so much, though, Sandra. BCHL is king. I think players travel in and around Vancouver. Hey, it's a great league. It's a great league statistically. You know, it's up there. You know, it's USHL as far as NHL drafts, NCAA Division I commitments is still the king. The BCHL gets a few drafts. The USHL is just chock full of first-round talent these days, mostly because of their national training and development program teams, the 17s and the 18s, but it's still there. But the BCHL is a wonderful league, you know, wonderful league. It's just, I would really caution you if you're looking at that as your backup plan. If that's, what's it called in college when you have your backup school? I forget the terminology. You got your picks, and then you got your fallback school. Well, the BCHL is not a fallback league, and a lot of Americans think of it as they think of the NHL and the BCHL as fallbacks for the USHL for kids that don't make it. No, even there, remember there's 2 drafts in the USHL. Okay, if you're drafted in the USHL, now remember their tender process is a little different. You got some teams that will use their tender in the first round. If I really know there's a superstar player out there, I will tender him, but I give up my first round pick. I think this last year you saw a lot of them, but some years you'll only see 4 or 5 teams because they won't use that tender to give up their first round pick because they think that the talent's pretty evenly spread and there's 6 or 8 or 10 guys they can pick from that are all, they're happy with any of them. So sometimes you'll see tenders where it's a strong year where they're all using their one tender. Other years you'll see, but they literally lose a draft pick for their tender usage. Now, besides that, what is there, 12, 14, 16 rounds in the USHL draft? First round, second round, pretty much, statistically a lock. But after that, you start seeing a fall off by rounds as far as how many players actually make the league. You get up to 7, 8, 9, and 10 in the draft. You might be drafted, but there's a really good chance you'll never step foot on the ice except for main camp in the USHL. So just being drafted in the USHL doesn't really mean as much as you think it does. So anyway, here let's see what else we got going on here. Where do tryouts fit in, or is it impossible to accurately evaluate someone in tryout or camp setting? Rob, I'm going to ask you to do me a favor on that one. Are you talking about junior tryouts, or are you talking about tryouts for U18s? Give me a little bit of clarification. I'll try to jump back to that. All right. It looks like I'm getting into yes, but how can somebody jump to another program? He is at USPHL. Well, remember, USPHL, because they're an autonomous league, and this is a question I'll have to ask the group because I don't know the answer to this. NCDC is autonomous from USA Hockey, but did the USHL or did the USPHL pull all of their teams out of USA Hockey now? Because I know they've expanded a couple times in the last year or two. Let me know that. That's something I just haven't looked at lately to see if they've pulled all their teams out. If you're in the USPHL, there is a path. There's a path within the USPHL. It's premier, to the NCDC. Now, the NCDC can get you into good college hockey. It can get you into great college hockey. It's free hockey too. It's just, once again, it's a pyramid. USPHL, as far as the premier, holy smokes. It feels like there's 800 teams, but I think it's 80, 90 teams right now at the premier level across the nation. So they all funnel into 12 teams now? That means you really have to work hard to be in that top area. And as you can clearly guess, there's going to be teams that produce a lot more players every year to the NCDC than others. There'll be teams that don't have any players moving on to the NCDC, just in pure numbers and pure statistics. When you have that many premier teams, you're just not going to be able to feed the funnel. It gets too thin, too narrow, too quick for all those teams to produce players to the NCDC level. So that's where you start seeing a lot of kids that will either go to they'll jump over to the EHL for opportunities, or they'll just ride their clock out with a USPHL team and play for a D3 team coming out of there. Tons of players come out of the USPHL Premier that will go play D3 hockey. The only difference is there's, just like anything in life, just like colleges, there's D3 programs that are extremely competitive hockey, and then they move on down. You're very rarely going to see a USPHL Premier player playing on the super competitive, or I should say the numbers narrow drastically on the really good programs where you see Premier players make it that way, because those Premier players will get opportunities to play D3 hockey, just not at the same level as a kid coming out of the Null or a kid coming out of the BCHL that didn't go D1 that wants to play for a Tier 3 team, a Division 3 team. They're going to get the opportunities over anybody coming out of the Premier. And the NCDC kids are going to get the opportunity over Premier. So there's plenty of opportunity. Okay. How can a player go from a prep school to one of these junior leagues? What does he need to do or focus on? Well, once again, remember I told you there's 4 categories that these kids are walking in with. So really, if you're playing prep and you get your D1 commitment, there a vast majority of kids that are playing prep that have the D1 commitment are going to the BCHL. They go one and done in there. Great example is a kid playing for Penn State right now. Played prep school. His kid name's Kevin Wall. You can look him up. Played prep school. He is the model of the prep model. I can't remember where he played. He might have been Salisbury. Played prep 1 year in the BCHL, then straight on to his Division I commitment. So coming out of prep, going to prep for that, it is tough, because you're fighting against some of these kids that, remember, there's a big push from the National Training and Development Program for prep players. So a lot of players that are super elite will jump into prep knowing that that's where they're going to get pulled from. If you notice, vast majority of kids, I didn't look at this year's roster. Up until this year, the pandemic could shake things up. Up until this year, the vast majority of kids, the pendulum swing has been over to take, heavily weighted on the prep schools, even for the National Training and Development Program. So when you're looking at the BCHL and you look at that, 40 some odd kids out of the 91 come from the prep schools, a lot of those are because they were already NCAA Division I commits, and they're either the college coach or the prep coach strongly recommended they do 1 year in the BCHL and move on. So if you're in the prep world and you're looking to what league, if you're not getting talked to, you got to reach out. You got to start doing your marketing campaign. You got to start getting on the horn. You got to start making sure that every program out there knows who you are. You can't expect anybody to know who you are. Remember, there's different ways to get in. You can get drafted, you can get tendered, and you can be a free agent. There's a ton of great players coming out of prep school every year that graduate out of prep school that end up coming in as free agents into Null and USHL camps. So I hope that helps. What can you focus on? I would focus on keep playing good. You do as well as you can on the ice, get good numbers, or do what you do best on the ice. If it's not statistically noticeable, get good video on what you do well, and make sure you pump that video out. Put a link on your YouTube page and send that link to as many coaches as you can. Get the word out on what you're doing. Really, if you're not marketing for yourself, you can't expect anybody else to be marketing for you. Yes, you can use advisors. Advisors are fine. It's just their responsibility is not always to reach out to every single person, where you can reach out to every single person. So hopefully that helps a little bit. Thanks for the question. What's the best way to get the word out on your player? Who do you reach out to? I think I just covered that. Yes, you can reach out to Null coaches directly. Yes, you can reach out to the development guys in the Null. Yes, the directors. You can reach out to the scouts. You can reach out to the assistant coaches. In fact, there's usually a kid will reach out to all of us. Every name that's listed on the website, they'll hit us all with an email if our emails are on. I know mine is on. That's the way it's done. So this one says USPHL Premier is not worth playing. It's not about hockey. It's about connection, bribery, I guess, but still better than doing nothing. NCDC is okay. I don't know if I go that far. I mean, I know a lot of great people that own USPHL Premier teams. I know great coaches of the USPHL Premier. Remember, it's so big. There's so many different areas to it. Some parts of the nation, it's phenomenal and it's really good and competitive, meaning it's balanced and it's good hockey. And I get it. There's outliers out there that aren't so good, but that I can say the same thing. I can tell you, I know BCHL, you put all the coaches in the room, there's always somebody on the bottom that they're talking about that isn't good enough. He's incompetent. You put the null coaches together or the GMs together or the owners together, there's always somebody that's an outlier or a couple people that are outliers that just don't do what the others do. And people say, oh, they're only in it for the money. They say, there's all kinds of, it's at every level. Believe me, there's even pro programs. That's why pro programs leave one city or leave ownership leaves or sells. It doesn't happen as much as it used to, but you get bad owners, you get bad managers, you get bad coaches. That happens. But overall, I wouldn't say that it's completely a bad league. It's Tier 3 hockey, and Tier 3 hockey has a much broader level of talent than playing in the NCDC or playing in the NAL or the BCHL or the USHL. So let's see what else we can get into here. No one going to come look at us. Everyone knows how tough it is. That's not a surprise. It seems that anyone can play ACHA. Wow. You might want to put that up as a question on our discussion board. Can anybody play ACHA? And I would say the answer is probably yes, is a general answer. There's a cool school out there that'll take a hockey player. That's true. But boy, oh boy, you might want to do a little homework on what ACHA is in the Division I and Division II levels. I know of several programs that have spring tryouts for potential players coming in the spring, and they'll do showcase skates, and they'll have 150, 200 kids trying out for one team. So, and they're good players. They're really good players. So go watch a game, pull up some video. I think I threw some video up online a few weeks ago on our discussion group or on the Junior Hockey Advisor page. It was a really good game. It was down in North Carolina, Duke, North Carolina, I think it might have been. But I know several of those kids, and some of those kids were really, on track for different reasons for Division I hockey, and they got off track. One of the players played with my son. He had Division I written all over him. Got a couple injuries, set him back a little bit. He ended up going home because he lived out of state, and things changed for him. And he's still a great player, but it just took him off the track that he was on. So, ACHA hockey, and I don't want to say nobody's going to come watch you, because there are tons. ACHA hockey comes and watches you. D3 coaches will come and watch you. There's tons of people that come watch you, and they do. You go to a USPHL showcase and you're looking at premier players. There's always Division III coaches there watching, especially you get to the end of the year where they're done with their seasons. If they're not moving on to the playoffs, they're there earlier. If they're moving into the playoffs, you might not see them until the playoffs are over. So, let's see what this says. Having somebody advocate for you helps. Such a good advisor agent. You always need to be promoting yourself. Great comment. I fully agree with that. Let's see what else. Let's see if we got some questions, though. All right, let's see what this one says here. Is it common to go Division III from Premier USPHL? Not sure how important any of it is. Yeah, I mean, you're not going to go to Division I out of the Premier League. You're going to go either to a higher level juniors, like the NCDC, or now there's a handful. You'll get a dozen kids that will go to the Premier League right to the NAL, and they're usually special cases. They're playing for a Premier team in a market that doesn't have a much Tier 1 elite, so they're like a U18 level player that's playing Premier. But you'll get some that'll jump. Very rare, and not all of them are successful. But there'll be, a dozen players in a league of 800, that'll jump that way. Let's see. Can the money a player receive in the OHL be used for after playing for school in the U.S. and Canada? Thanks. Absolutely. So had this situation with a lot of my players over the years. You go play up in the OHL, you play in the WHL, you play in the Q, and they give you money, and it's contract based. So you play 1 year, you get X amount. You play 2 years, you get X amount. You get 3 years, you get X amount. Now, if you go, if you use the contract states, if you play AHL or higher, that voids that money. So you can play a year or 2, 3 years in the East Coast League. I have one of my players that played. He played for me very young on a junior team that I was coaching that I owned. Jumped to the OHL for 3 years. Went on to play in the East Coast League for maybe 4 or 5 years. Went back to college in either Vancouver or Calgary, one of the colleges out there in the U Sports system. Used all of his money and got to play on their varsity team for the college, which was extremely high competition hockey, and had a blast. I think he played 3 of his 4 years, and then the body just kind of said, "I've had enough." And now he's living out in the woods somewhere as a surveyor. He went to school to be a surveyor. I've got probably 5 or 6 players that I can mention that I've coached that have gone through that. Yes, you can use the money in the United States. Back in the day when I was playing, and I was playing for the All Marine hockey team, one of the purposes of that team was to showcase the Marine Corps. We'd go around and play exhibition games all over the place. And once in a while, we'd play an exhibition game. I mean, sometimes we had to play like Washington against the senators and the congressmen, and it was really a symbolic game for ceremony more than it was competitive. And then you'd end up playing the next week against a team out of Arizona State, and Arizona State would be chock full of all these OHL guys that had money to go to school, and they said, "Hey, I'm going to go to school where there's bikinis and sunshine." And so you saw schools in the LA area, Stanford, USC, UCLA, all of them had club hockey teams, just stuff with OHL guys that, this is even going back 30 years ago. So yes, you can use that money and play for any college, or it'll help you pay for any college states or in Canada. Great question. Glad you answered it. So somebody put on there, I believe, Canada only. There might be some contracts that stipulate Canada only, but I know lots of players over the years that have used their money. Down in Florida, it used to be there's a few Florida ACHA schools that had some OHL guys on them. They were phenomenal players. So, all right, let's see if I got a couple more questions. How are we doing on time? We got a few minutes. So how are we doing on a group? We got a good, solid group here. Any suggestion on how to differentiate between junk camp invites and real opportunities? My son has gotten emails, texts, and phone calls this week from different coaches, but it's hard to tell when it's just a mailing list or the invite is legitimate. It's a phenomenal question. Every organization, USHL, BCHL, North American Hockey League, NCDC, Premier, EHL, they all want people to attend their camps. They all want them in their pre-drafts or whatever they're doing to be able to look at players. Of course, these things cost money. Of course, you're going to charge for it. It's not as big of a money grab as people think. Now, there's always the outlier that will charge a lot more than everybody else, or they'll give you a lot less ice time. But most of it's all falling within the same structure. Everybody's doing about the same thing. But yeah, I know for a fact that there are teams that just go on to RinkNet, which is the backdoor system for most colleges and juniors and pro teams. They'll pull a list of players that tier 1 elite, let's say, and they'll just boom, hit it. I want left wingers above 6 foot tall. If I got an email on them, send them the email. Then there'll be people, like other organizations that have a list where they go through and they build a hand list and try to figure out exactly what they're looking for. Is there a way to know the difference? Email the coach and say, "Hey, look, we're thinking about coming. Can you tell us a little bit about why you invited us, or what you're looking for?" If somebody emails me to test the waters to see if it was a generic email, a pooled email. I'm losing my mind on these little phraseologies. But basically, if you're doing some kind of spam email type, if somebody sends me one to test the waters on it, sometimes I'll text or call them back that day and say, "Hey, no, we liked him because we watched him in this game, or we talked to him after this game," or we try to tie it together somehow so they know that we're legitimate. And there's no way to do it unless you tickle back a little bit. I wouldn't say attack back. I'd just say tickle back a little bit. And most people will reach back to you and say, no, we liked him because we saw him play with this, or your coach recommended. Sometimes they'll tell you how they got your information. One of our scouts thought you were really good. This coach in that league, one of your competitors really liked you and said you might be a good fit for us. They'll usually give you an idea of how they got your information. So hopefully that works. Okay. Any suggestions on, oh, I already did that one. Let's see what other questions we got here. Oh, Rob came back in and said, for junior teams, can somebody who isn't on a top 40 team, but is a top player, break through via tryouts and camps? Absolutely. Great question now, Rob, now that we got it clarified a little bit. I'll take our program. Our program consistently over the last 4 or 5 years has placed players from our pre-draft camp onto the roster, and they stuck on the roster. I think we've got 4 or 5 guys that came out of pre-draft camps. That means they weren't tendered, or they were offered a tender out of the pre-draft camp. They weren't drafted. They may have been offered a draft out of the, or were drafted because of the pre-draft camp, but they came into it fresh. So absolutely, if you're that player, that's working hard in those showcases and those pre-drafts. That was one of the things I said earlier. That's the only way you're going to do it, except for getting the name out there, hammering back a little bit, sending out video. Hey, look, there isn't, I shouldn't say there isn't any, because, I probably got 15 emails today, 15, 20 emails from players today. And I probably watched 10, 11 of them. A few of them, either I knew the kid already, or it was a update, where they've already sent me something, and I might get around to it, but I've really got an idea where the kid is. And he's just sending me some more tape to kind of update the story or add to his file. But the majority of people that are in this business, we're looking for talent. It's not that we're lazy and we only focus on the top 30, but the top 30 are the top 30 because of a reason, for the most part. Is there always a good player at 80 on the 80th ranked team or the 100th ranked team? Of course there is. The problem is if I'm going down and looking at teams 80 through 150, and there's maybe one kid, then another kid, then 2 kids on this team, all the way down on those teams down the list, I'm spinning my wheels, spending a lot of time looking at one kid. When I go to a showcase where I know there's a team with, 8 or 9 players that are USHL, BCHL, null bound on the team, I'm just getting a better bang for my buck. I'm getting a chance to see more talent and try to work it that way. It's just a matter of having only so much resources. Even if you're a good USHL program or a good BCHL, well-funded, I should say, not good, well-funded null team, there's only so much you can do as far as being able to see the Minnesota high school prep and U18 and all of the hockey in Canada. Because remember, the CGHL is scouted and recruited and drafted by both the USHL and by the North American Hockey League. So we've got a vast array of players we're trying to watch. So we try to do it to condense. That's why some showcases and some tournaments are extremely popular, because you're going to see a lot of players that fit into what you're looking for. So absolutely, there absolutely is opportunities to do that. So good, Rob. Thanks. I appreciate that. Let's see what else. Let's see. At what age, please pop up. There we go. At what age do you start positioning your child for showcases? Well, that's a really good question. At 14 or 15, if you're a USHL National Training Development Program material, you're probably getting reached out and talked to already. You're probably already on that track and you've already figured it out. So let's set that 1% aside, or that 2% aside of elite hockey players. Elite means you're playing AAA travel and above. Okay, so what do you do to start positioning? Well, one is when you go to these, the junior level, the lower level, the 14 through 16 age level of the Chowder Cup or the pre-draft skates, you start meeting people, talking, evaluating, meeting the people who are doing it, handshaking, networking, and building relationships. So getting an idea where the trends are, where players are going. It's studying elite prospects to figure out who's going to be good in your area, who is good in your area, who puts output, what coaches. Now remember, you can go into elite prospects and you can click a button and you can see if it's populated, because it's still a new feature. It'll tell you what all the coaches, youth coaches, a kid played for. So now you can start saying, oh, geez, that coach keeps popping up over and over and over again on these elite players. You can start going to these things at 14 or 15. Don't expect, at 15 years old, a lot of kids will get invites to go. And if you reach out to them and you're a AAA player and there's a hole, you can get invited to a null camp. You can get invited to a BCHL camp. You can get invited to a USHL camp. when my son was playing U15 for the Oakland Junior Grizzlies in the Detroit area, I think half to 2/3 of his team skated in several USHL camps at 15 going on 16 years old. And so you can start positioning at that age. Now, none of them were going to the USHL the next year. A couple years from that point, they started getting drafted and some kids started moving up. But at that age, you're just trying to grab some experience and try to get the idea, the feel, and the rhythm, and see how it all works. I always encourage people to get involved with, pre-draft skates, showcases, these the Chowder Cups, the pre-draft camp or showcase in Boston. There's an event in Tennessee. There's one in Colorado. There's a couple in Detroit. These events are all good because you're getting to see what the peer group is. You're getting to look around and get an idea of how this whole thing works. And there's going to be junior coaches there, and there's going to be college coaches there, and you'll be able to discuss things and listen to them and get an idea of how things are going. So I'd say 14, 15 is the right age to start thinking about it. And then it goes on to how much time your family has to put into it and how much money you got to put into it. I don't think you have to do 10 of those events in the summer. 1 or 2 at 14, 15 wouldn't hurt. There's no reason to do 8. It would be a waste of time and money because once you get the idea how it works, you got the idea how it works. Once you've networked a little bit, now there'll be some zealots that'll do as many as they can. I just don't know if that, I don't know if that fit for what I'm talking about. Okay, let's see. My son got an invite to attend a pre-draft camp at Null. What is your thoughts on this? Email is one that goes to everyone. Sorry, don't know where the Null fits in because new to this junior hockey. Well, it goes Null, and then you can argue BCHL. It goes USHL, BCHL, Null. The Null produces the most Division I talent, and that's mostly because of the size of the league. But astronomically, it's those 3, and then there's a big gap down to the rest. And the rest are by leading numbers statistically. It's actually the AJHL, probably followed right now by the CCHL, OJ, up in Canada. That's the CJHL umbrella goes over the age. It goes through. There's 9 teams that fall into that CJHL umbrella. I've got a video on that. I've talked about it before, but watch the video. It'll explain the CJHL because, especially people that are worried about finances. If you're worried about finances and you're playing Premier, you can cut your bill in half. Cut 1/3 to a half off your bill, maybe more off your bill by playing in the CCHL. Yes, you've got to move to Canada. Not you, but your kid has to move to Canada. But the CJHL, I hope I didn't say CCHL. I meant the CJHL, meaning there's 9 leagues up there. Okay, everywhere from Alberta all the way over to the Maritimes and everything in between, with 3-4 leagues in the Ontario area. That's phenomenal hockey. It's really good hockey, and it feeds the Null, it feeds the USHL, it feeds the NCDC, and it feeds college hockey. There are kids that those leagues can wear both hats. The AJHL will get a ton of kids that will commit up there. There's a couple teams up there. If you look at Brooks up there, the Brooks Bandits, they can play with any team, USHL, NCDC, Null, BCHL. They can run with anybody. They're that good, okay? They will have a ton of college commitments. Americans that go up to play for Brooks, even if the USHL wants them, even if the Null wants them, even if the BCHL wants them, they don't leave. Statistically, they don't leave. Somebody will go down there and go, oh, I know a player that left. Yeah, there'll be a kid or two that leaves. But Brooks takes such good care of you up there. And it's a free league. That's the only non-paid league outside of the BCHL, Null, and the USHL. But if you're looking at this and you can't figure out what the next step is, I would absolutely look at the CJHL and look at some of the leagues up there. I've got plenty of video. Just go to the YouTube page. You can look at the CJHL. You can look at the AJHL. You can look at the BCHL. Get a lot of knowledge on there. I would highly encourage you, if you don't know anything about Canadian junior hockey, watch the videos, learn about these leagues, because the only reason I know about these leagues, well, twofold. One is I had to go up there and scout. I had to go up there and recruit. Or I lost a player that was playing on my junior team and he went up to play in the BC, or he went up to play in the AJ and had a great experience. Then, of course, when my kids got older, both my kids played in Canada after they were played U18. And, that got me up there as a parent too. But until you get up and watch a game in the OJHL, you watch a game in the CCHL, watch a game in the AJ, and see that, these rabid towns, these small rinks that are beautiful. Some of them are very modern, but they're smaller, with great crowds, great support, and good hockey. And you get a whole different. It's different because now you're getting an experience that's a life experience too. So where hockey takes you is that journey, not necessarily how high it can take you, but the journey you're experiencing while you're on this journey. You're smelling the roses. You're taking a chance to actually tiptoe through the tulips instead of worrying about getting to that NCAA Division I level, which they still can get you there. But my point about Brooks is these leagues will have a lot of players that use those as a league of destination. Remember, there's two different junior leagues, a league of advancement, a league of destination. Destination League, BCHL, USHL. Hybrid League, North American Hockey League. Why is it hybrid? The majority of those kids are destination players. Once they get to the NAHL, they're perfectly set. That'll take them to Division I college hockey. However, remember, 1 out of every 5 players in the USHL played in the NAHL first. So it's still a league of advancement, even though it's a league of destination. NCDC tries to be a league of destination, but they'll still get bleed off to the other leagues. But you look at the EHL, that's a league of destination, meaning kids the vast majority of the kids that play in the EHL know that league will take them to D3 hockey. They're content with that. They know I don't want to say they know their place. That's not the fair thing to say. They know that what bandwidth they're in as a player. The EHL is perfect. It's extremely good hockey, and it'll get them there. Premier, top of the top core, the top third gets it. I can't say the bottom third gets it, but I hope you get the point. League of advancement or a league of destination. That's extremely important across the board. Let's see what else is coming in. So one question I don't know if I think, I know I did answer that one. I know some of these, I'm trying to get by the ones where you guys are answering your own questions. Back and forth in the chat here. Do you have to be invited to a USHL tryouts? Are they open to anyone? And where are the tryouts usually at? And where does a person find all that information for tryouts? USHL, you can request to be a tryout. You can send them an email. And if you're, let's put, if I'm playing for the U18 team or the U16 team in St. Louis, and Des Moines and Dubuque and a couple other programs in that area need some players, there's a good chance if you reach out and they've got a spot and you're playing at that level, they'll let you skate in there. The USHL always is trying to fill out and balance their teams. They'll send out invites. They'll send out, some of the teams send out the blanket, mass mailers. Others are very selective on it. But usually if you reach out and you're playing at the tier 1 level, you could possibly get in the door that way. Pre-draft camps, jump into those. The other thing that the USHL does is they have their own basic. It's combine camp, and they run 1 or 2 now. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I know they do the Chicago event. They might be doing more than that. If I missed that, somebody correct me in the comments. But there's different ways to get into a USHL camp. But remember, if the USHL isn't already watching you, or you can't feel the eyes on you, the USHL is extremely tough to play in, because remember, these are the players. I'll go to a game next weekend, and there'll be USHL players and all players playing on a team, U16 team, prep team. I think I'm watching prep next weekend. So I'm watching a prep game, and I know that kid's got 5 guys in the USHL watching him already. I'm not talking to him. I'm talking to player number 2, number 3, and number 4, because I know where we fit in the league. If you're in that realm, it. As a U18 player, as a U16 player. It doesn't mean you can't get more known for next year. So the showcases and the reason I say that is because, remember, even our program that I used as an example, and USHL programs are the same way. There's a reason why they have open tryouts. Now, open's a little bit more, it's not like you just show up with a check in your hand the day of. Open means there's free agents in the camp. It's not closed to just draft picks, veterans, and tenders. Open means that there's going to be other kids that are free agents. That's what you're called if you're coming in without anything. You're called a free agent, and you're more than welcome to try to get into any of the camps you can. There's kids that get into USHL and NOL camps all the time that are coming from a top 100 team or a top 150 team, and they're good players that just got overlooked. And there's a certain percentage of them that'll make it, and it's a great experience and it's a good confidence builder. So hopefully that helps a little bit. Keep in mind, to get to the next level, your athlete needs to perform at a high level. Of course, thank you for reminding me to say that. This all goes by the wayside if you're not already talented and already producing, because we're talking about elite athletes and getting to the next level of elite. You've got to be a productive player. Now, productive doesn't mean you got to score all the goals in the team. There's guys I'm heavily recruiting right now that will never score more than 20 points at the North American Hockey League level, but they will be a very, very important part of a team. Now, I'm not talking defensemen, I'm talking forwards. There'll be defensemen that we recruit that will get 5 points in a year. We're happy with that because of the role they're playing for us defensively and moving the puck out of our zone. So hopefully that helped a little bit. Here's a good question. When is the right time to reach out to teams? Any day, every day, all days. You can reach out 24/7, 365. I know that, in our organization, sometimes the holidays are the days we're speaking and texting and communicating. We use a WhatsApp, text, emails, and the overall organization, there's 8-10 of us that are using WhatsApp and text on holidays. Christmas Eve, Christmas, New Year's Day, Easter, just because we're downtime with a family and all of a sudden we're going, oh, forgot about this. Let's talk about that player. I get an email coming in, I watch it. I'm sending it on to somebody, check him out. What do you think about, so all the time, do it all the time. I don't think there's a right or wrong answer to that. Okay, let's see if we get a couple more questions answered. At what age do you start promoting to prep school? Do you recommend 8th grade or waiting? Wow, that phenomenal question. I can't profess to be an 8th, 9th, or 10th grade prep guru because I know there's a lot of prep programs that want you in at those ages. I know that if you go in, a real ideal age for most, elite level hockey players that are moving to prep is 10th grade. But a lot of times you have to be careful or at least know the rules. The rule is, in many cases, they're going to have you repeat a year. They're going to have you repeat that 10th grade year. And they do that for many reasons. Some say it's a money grab for the prep schools. I don't know. I'm sure there's a good logic, or there's it's an unwritten rule that that's the way the prep programs work. But you can expect to get a, either a PG post-grad year or a redo year. I don't know of any players that felt the need to go prep at 8th grade because you're not really playing. You're not playing U16 or U18 yet, and usually the prep programs, you want to be at that age where you're playing with a top team. But if you're a good enough player and you're getting into the 3rd, 8th grade, and you're kind of setting the stone that you are in line, that's great. Now keep in mind on the downside of that, 8th grade, 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade, 12th grade PG or a repeat year. Now you're talking about 6 times 5. You're talking about $300,000. That'll knock off most Ivies if you weren't a hockey player, if you wanted to go that route in college. So, if it fiscally you can handle it, I don't think there's a problem with it. But just know that this is adding, $40,000, $50,000 to your overall family budget every year if you start too early. So, hopefully that helps a little bit. That one already got answered. Is the BCHL pay to play? No, it's not. However, during the pandemic, they did throw some surcharges in, and we're charging kids, for ice time for things just to try to stay afloat. They had no revenue, no advertising dollars coming in, no fans coming in, so they're trying to do anything they could to stay afloat. So, all right, got a goalie question. Always good to get a goalie question. Let's see if I can jump on here with a goalie question. Am I still on? Why? Okay, there we go. At what age should goalies start their canvassing for generating interest in them? I have been told the USHL and NOL don't typically look at. Well, the USHL starts looking very young. You're talking about, remember the ages I talked about earlier on? The NOL, yes, it's an older league. Right now, my focus is on for players for next year for my team, and I can only speak for my team. We're looking at 02, 03, 04. We might we might invite an 05 or 2 to the fall camp, but really 02, 03, 04 for next year. So the USHL is a younger league. You're going to get a little bit of a different feel for that because, once again, if you go back and listen to this recording later, you'll see those numbers I gave you in the beginning about, their shift down is a much younger league than the NAL is. So you'll get a little bit different answer there. Let's see. Man, you guys are killing me with questions tonight. I love it. Let's see what this one says. I heard there's a time frame for which you can use the major junior education money. Is it a small one? Well, see, there's different contracts and they get negotiated different ways. You can look that up. That's something that's just not my world, so I don't know what the time frame is. But I'm sure it is a small window. And remember, they put a restriction on that too. That if most of them, it's if you play one AHL game, boom, you lose your money. So I'm sure it's pretty restricted. I'm sure it's within a couple year time frame. But now that they've got unions involved and there's been some lawsuits on treating them more like employees instead of amateur hockey players, the last few years has been this big change in mentality on how these players are treated. I wouldn't know that, but I'm sure you can go online and look that up. That's outside of our realm. But yes, there is some restrictions on it. Yes. Is there anyone out there working as an ACHA advisor? Yes, there is. I can cover that. Let's do a whole show on that. We're due for an ACHA show anyway. I'll do that in the next couple of weeks, and we'll talk about ACHA and how you get yourself exposed to ACHA. And there are advisors that do focus on it. People would say, "Holy smokes! Why would you use an advisor for ACHA? Why would you use an advisor for Tier 3 junior hockey?" You know me. I sit in the middle. I'm not proposing that you use an advisor. I'm not saying you can do it all on your own. But I can tell you this. I know advisors that know programs out there that will whack 50% off of the tuition bill because they have avenues. They're not playing by the NCAA rules. So they have, you can be a club sport and have a club budget. You can have endowments. You can have money coming in all over the place. And some of these programs that are ACHA, the kids have really super good deals to go to school at extremely economic prices. So sometimes, when Long Island was still an ACHA program, they were offering some unbelievable deals for out-of-state tuition kids, and just pulling money out of the back pocket left and right on these kids. So, there's times where you want to use an advisor because if it's a difference of not, finding a school that's usually costing $30 and they can get it down to $9 or $10, why wouldn't you use that guy? Is it worth paying a guy $2,000 to save you that kind of money? I think it is. Now, once again, you could probably do the homework yourself. You could probably network yourself. But, if there's somebody that does it and makes your life easy, that's fine. I don't have a problem with that at all. Let's see what else we got here. Okay, here's a good one. And this is goalies and their cameras, suction cups all over the place. What do you see as the best video for a goalie behind the net or a game video? Yes, send video in. We've got one person on our staff that focuses on goalies, and they get video from all different angles. You can hold a camera up from different angles. You can go up in the stands and do it, because you're looking for the ability to, there's so many things that we're looking at on goalies: skating ability, reflex, athleticism, balance. Then you're looking at the chess match. Do they see? Can they close their eyes and take a piece of paper and put an X and an O where every single player on the ice is in front of them at any given time? Do they have that ability? Do they know where the play is going to progress? Do they know where to put the rebounds and the rebound control? There's so many different aspects you can pick up. So the video behind, front, back, is not as important. Now, somebody will argue that it absolutely should be from this angle. And goalie coaches or goalie skills guys, I'm sure they have a different approach to where video is. From my side of it, just get us the video. We'll figure it out. We usually do a pretty good job and get the right people on it. If we need a different angle, we'd ask you for it. So thank you. You answered my question, but it wasn't RinkNet, but Constant Contact. Thanks. RinkNet is where you pull the information, then you dump it into Constant Contact. RinkNet, it does have an email feature, but most people will pull it into their own system. So Hopefully that helped. Thank you for letting me know I was on track for you there. I would go to any camps from USHL and all BCHL junior many as possible. That's good advice if you can afford it and you can do it. Okay, I think we're going to call it nights at night. Okay, so I'll do a couple more. Thoughts on the NA3HL? I'll give you plenty. We'll do a whole show on the NA3. Can't do it tonight. Already got video out on this. And most people know my answer on this one. Would it be better to play U18 or go play in the NA3? I am an advocate of playing the highest level of U18 before you go to juniors. You can. I don't think you should be a 2-year, necessarily always be a 2-year U18 guy. But if you haven't played U18 coming out of 16s, that's such a valuable year. And for people that that are in the know, we really look for those U18 players. Most of the people in the know are not scouting the lower levels as much as they're scouting the tier 1 elites. Now, we all watch the NA3 teams because we have drafts to use there. We have picks to use there. But we're also spending the majority of our time looking at U18 players. So, okay. I'll see if we get one more. We're way over time. Hey, I'm just going to call it quits. We got great questions. I'll try to do these offline. I'll get out and I'll type some answers for the rest of these. Wow. I hope this was valuable for you. I had a blast tonight. I've never seen this many questions come in. I'm scrolling, a few pages of questions. I've got people texting me questions, and I've got them coming in on DMs too. I appreciate your support on this. Remember, we're trying to grow the group, but this is helpful. Get your team involved. Get your organization involved. Invite your friends to the group. We're trying to grow this. It's going to help us as we try to develop this into something a little bit better than the platform we already have. And if there's anybody out there that's got an expertise on how to grow, we literally grow on the Facebook side as big as our whole YouTube channel is on a weekly basis. That's how many people we're adding on the Facebook side. But we can't seem to get traction on YouTube. Tell us your thoughts if that's your expertise. Not if you just watch YouTube once in a while and you want to give me opinions, I'll say thank you. But if you really know YouTube and know the metrics behind it and know all the secret sauce you're supposed to be doing, we're following the rules. But I sure would like to see that grow. If you can help us out in that way, what you can do to help us right away is like and support us. Like and subscribe our YouTube page too. And there's a ton more videos on that side. Have a great night, folks. Sorry I went long, but man, it was fun. I had a lot of questions I was trying to answer. Have a great week. We'll see you next week, and we'll try to get to the rest of these questions for you. Take care.